As Hollie's dad, I had to identify her body. And the coroner said to me, you need to brace yourself because Hollie's being badly cut about the face and arms where she tried to defend herself. And I can't ask you to imagine what I was thinking at that stage. What am I going to see? How bad is this going to be? My young daughter is led on that slab. What am I going to see? But as Hollie's next of kin, I had to do that. And we saw Hollie lying there under a white sheet. That signing along that dotted line was again one of the hardest things that I had to do as a father. I always remember when I first became a father and the joy was immense, and I still have that picture in my mind with both girls. And I remember buying them a teddy each when they were born, and we still have those teddies today. Hollie and Chloe, as sisters, had a very, very good relationship. They were always very, very close. They were a bit like chalk and cheese. They wanted different things and did different things. When Hollie qualified as a level 3 hairdresser, she came to me one day and said, Dad, I do have the traveling bug and I want to travel. And I said, okay, great idea to see the world and experience different cultures, but we've got to be a little bit careful of the safety element. So we talked about it and we came up with the view that perhaps going on a cruise ship where she could combine her traveling and her hairdressing would be a great option. So she applied to a company called Steiner. We took her to Exeter, she had the interview, she passed, and while she was waiting to go to London to train, she was working in a club called Zest in Gloucester. It was there that she met Asher Maslin. He came in and he was a regular, and she told us about this. And she said, and after a couple of weeks, he built a relationship with her, and he was now going to dominate the next 12 months of her life. In fact, more than dominate, he was going to brutally end it. When we took her up to London on the Sunday evening, we found out that on the Monday, Maslin had travelled to London as well to be with her. He didn't have a job, he didn't have anywhere to stay, but he was infatuated with Hollie, and that's why he followed her to London. After 5 weeks training with Steiner in London, and she got the call to go on a cruise ship. She was only 19, but she was allocated to the celebration ship, a part of the Carnival line in the Bahamas. She gave us the call. We went up to Watford to pick her up and take her to Heathrow so that she could board a flight to Miami. And there she was. We thought 9-month contract, happily on the ship, doing the job that she wanted to do. But within a week, she telephoned us and said, Dad, I want to come home. Can you arrange flights to get me home? We thought that was really strange because Hollie was the type of individual who was very strong, and when she set her mind on something, she would follow it through. So we could not understand why, having thought about this for a period of months, given her job up, did all the training, suddenly after a week, she wanted to come home. It just didn't make sense to us. But obviously, first port of call, we wanted to get Hollie back because that's what she wanted. So we arranged the flights and we brought her back to Gloucester. She didn't say much, she just said, it didn't suit her. But what she did say was that she loved that London lifestyle, that fast-paced passion she had for fashion, and she wanted to go back to London to train. So, she quickly got a job in Edgware as a stylist in the April of 2013. And then we found out that Maslin had followed her. To be honest, we didn't think a lot of it. We didn't know anything about coercive control. We didn't know anything about stalking or domestic abuse. It never entered our mind. We'd never come across it before. And in May, she came back to Gloucester for the weekend because it was my wife's birthday. Maslin came back with her. We'd booked a table at a local restaurant. And because he was with Hollie, we invited him as well. So we were all there, sat at the restaurant. He turned up an hour late and he'd been drinking, he was drunk. What we then saw was, I believe, the true character of Maslin. He was manipulative, he was abusive, not only to Hollie, but to the other people in the restaurant, to the owners. He was clicking his fingers. It was the way he spoke to her and what he said. You know, it was degrading. It was treating her like a piece of dirt. It was treating her like a slave. And I didn't like that. You know, this is my daughter you're talking to. Chloe's partner had to take him outside to tell him to stop. And I said to her, you know, if you want me to get involved, please let me know. Hollie said, no, it's fine, Dad, not a problem, I can handle it. I was quite happy to let Hollie deal with it because she was that strong character. After that, on the Sunday, you know, we were a bit concerned that Hollie was going back to London with him because we saw a different person. You know, Maslin, some of his family and Hollie went to the Notting Hill Carnival. And it was there that she got separated from him slightly, and she was with his young cousin, and she took his young cousin to toilet. And because she did that, and Maslin couldn't find her, he got really angry. And what we now know is he floored her. And the following morning, she called me and said, Dad, can you come and pick me up? I want to come back to Gloucester. What we found out then, subsequently, on the following day, is that Maslin also returned to Gloucester on the same day, i.e. he was following Hollie. You know, she got a good job in a local salon, Fringe Benefits, as a stylist. She also got a job in the local pub, and everything seemed to be okay. You know, Maslin was around, but they didn't see each other that often. But as time progressed, he became more and more in the picture. Often, Hollie would have to turn her phone off at night because she was getting so many calls and texts from Maslin. And when she put it back on in the morning, you know, we could hear it go ping, 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 and it carried on for ages. So he must have sent multiple texts and tried to phone her on multiple occasions, you know, trying to get hold of her. But he knew she was at home. I now know the reason why she got the job in the evening was so that Maslin couldn't be with her. Although he turned up at the pub, the landlord said he was barred and didn't want him to be in the pub because that's what Hollie wanted. And she started to say that, Dad, I really want to get rid of this guy. So, you know, we said to her, why don't you take him to a place where you're in the public eye and you can give him that message and give him it very firm that it's over. You don't want to be with him anymore. So she said, that's fine, I can do that. You know, she tried to get rid of him. She tried to give him that message that it was over, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. He threw a drink in her face. She went to her car, he followed her, jumped in, put a hand on the handbrake, wouldn't let her go, and stole her credit card from inside her bag in the footwell. He then went across to the local cash point and drew a lot of her money. He obviously knew her PIN because he lived with her. So she told us about this, and we said, right, now you've got to call the police because this is getting out of hand. And she said, yes, I will. So we were with her and we gave her that support. She called the police, we listened to what she said, and some of the things we heard, we just could not believe. He took his DVD player into the local cash converters and exchanged that for £5. He went to the local Wilkinson store and he bought a kitchen knife. And they know from following him around Gloucester via CCTV that he'd been walking around for 2 or 3 hours before he knew that, you know, around about 6 o'clock in the salon it would be relatively empty, and that's when he could strike. So again, he went in at, I think it was about 10 to 6. There were a couple of people in there, you know, one client Hollie was doing the hair on, and there were a number of apprentices in there who were younger than Hollie, 16, 17 years old, and that's when he struck, that's when he stabbed her to death. I think he killed Hollie because he couldn't have her. And as he was a narcissist and he loved himself, he knew he'd lost her from the incident on the Friday night when she told him it was over. So the ultimate power that he had was to take her life, and that's what he did. We had to attend a number of court appearances in Bristol Crown Court, and Maslin attended as well, but he wouldn't admit his guilt at the initial hearings. He wanted to go down the route of diminished responsibility, but he had 2 psychiatric assessments, and both of them came back saying that there was nothing psychiatrically wrong with him. We imagine his briefs were telling him that, but he wouldn't take that on board, and I think he dismissed at least 1 set of briefs, maybe 2, before on the 3rd hearing he finally admitted his guilt. But that wasn't the end of his power and control. You know, he wanted to have the last word, so he appealed his sentence, and therefore we had to go to the Court of Appeal in London and hear the appeal. And I can always remember him being brought in with his armed guard and being in a cage at the top right of the courts, you know, their old-fashioned courts. And after half an hour, the 3 High Court judges dismissed his appeal. And that was really the end of his power and control. What I would say to parents now is that if they detect any evidence of controlling relationship issues, then talk to a professional. You know, there are lots of professionals around, whether they're local or national. You can get the numbers on the internet, but talk to them because they can advise you what to do. They can give you that steer. And if we can educate parents and we can educate young people around relationships and what to do when relationships are not what they seem, then I think we will save a lot more people from going through what Hollie went through and parents going through what we go through on a daily basis. And we created the Hollie Gazzard Trust. My everlasting memory of Hollie is a bright, happy-go-lucky individual who was always smiling and gave enormous amounts of pleasure to other people.